we're like, oh, we tense up and everything becomes rigid. So I kind of saw rigidity as like the enemy, number one, with yoga. And I was like, okay, like if we can find a way not to be rigid when we practice yoga, like maybe it'll work better, So I was just kind of trying to figure that out for so long. And then I started figuring out, okay, ease makes a lot of sense. Like move with ease. I'm, not just telling people how to move, but taking people step by step through a practice where they end up feeling there's nothing they're fighting in a way. They're getting to know themselves and also trusting that you can progress when you are doing something that's nourishing for yourself.
Hi, and welcome to the Yoga Beyond the Asana wonderful podcast. I'm so happy that you're here. I am super excited welcoming today's guest. I'm sure many of you already know her and love her style of sharing yoga. I really loved her energy from the very moment I came across her around 8 years ago when I started reading two of her very first books, Strala-Yoga and How Yoga Heals. And yes, I'm speaking about Tara Stiles. And for the ones who don't know her yet, here comes a little bit more about her background. Tara Stiles is a yoga teacher, New York bestselling author, and the founder of Strala-Yoga, with guides worldwide teaching the Strala-Yoga approach to yoginis and yogis. Tara stands for practice, which makes you feel good and is free from dogmatic teachings. She has transformed yoga for millions, and Deepak Chopra and Jane Fonda are companions of her path. Tara is also a mother of a 6-year-old daughter and a successful entrepreneur. Today, we will talk about her journey of becoming a yoga teacher, what running a successful business means to her, how she balances this with her private life, and how softness became her superpower. Mm-hmm. Welcome, Tara. I'm so happy that you're here.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. All of that sounds so professional, like it's somebody else. I'm sure you've experienced that so much where somebody reads all of these things about you and you're thinking, oh, wait, did I do that? Do I need to live up to that? What does that mean? So thanks for that.
I know. It's so funny that you say that because I was just reading it. I was like, I hope she enjoys hearing that. I hope she can really be proud of herself right now.
Oh my gosh.
Starting with this podcast, I asked some people from my community, people in Germany also know you and what they would like to know about you. And something that a few people said was that I should tell you that we really love you.
Oh. That's so nice.
Yeah.
That makes me feel good.
We love Tara. Please tell her that. Yeah. Tara, how are you right now? Where are you? And tell me a little bit about like, where do I catch you? Like, what is your life right now about? What moves you right now in this time of the year? How are you?
Oh, well, yeah. Thanks for asking. It's, a bit of a transition time for us. Daisy, she's 6, so she's in first grade. And here you can do school all different ways all over the world, but here it's, first grade for her. So she found a school that she really loves. So we're staying close by to this school, and daily, I'm just every day online with our Strala-Yoga app, as so many other people are, teaching and connecting virtually, which is so cool. And back to traveling a lot as well, going to Germany next year, again, coming up, and Italy, and kind of, just back to the full, I guess, pre-2020 sort of travel schedule. But it feels different now. I feel so happy that you said people say that, oh, they love me, because it's, I've always loved to connect with people since I started doing this. It's such a wonderful way to connect. But I think after 20 years, we hug extra long and it just feels so nice to get together. I really don't take it for granted anymore. I really appreciate it a lot more. So that's our kind of daily life for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I just told you up front from the podcast, when I first came across you, I felt an immediate connection, because we have some similar, things in common, similar background. I was a musical actress. You were a ballet dancer. You have a history in modeling. So can you share a little bit about your transition from that world, that external world, maybe also, and how you transition into yoga, like also for the people who don't know your story yet?
Yeah, sure. I think for me, it's probably really similar with you. Ballet brought me to yoga. I grew up, in kind of a small town. I would have experiences. I think we all do. It's kind of human where we kind of have little glimpses of, oh, there's something bigger than me. There's a connection. I felt connected to nature and all of these kinds of things. And I would ask my parents about it and they would say, don't ask about those things, just do your homework, whatever, just, live your normal life. But they were also living in this, they weren't saying it at the time, but more of a mindful lifestyle, but they kind of took it as, well, this is just a nice way to live. We recycled, my parents built this inexpensive passive solar home, so it didn't use a lot of energy. And my mom had a garden, but also they're from German background. So that's kind of similar to just a normal life. But at the time growing up, it was sort of the fast food culture and we kind of just stayed out of all that stuff. So I feel like I got the benefit of the lifestyle part of yoga without knowing about the philosophy and the practice. So through my ballet school, my teacher brought in a yoga instructor for relaxation and stress reduction on Fridays. And that's kind of the pitch for it. And it was the first time I saw somebody simply sitting there in the front of the room, just happy. And it was so ridiculous because nobody was giving him any positive attention. In fact, all the dancers were saying, oh, this is so silly. This is a waste of time. What are we here for? And I thought, wow, people are literally being a little bit rude to him and he's still happy. I want that. I want that quality. So I really got drawn into everything that he was doing even before the class started, just sitting there. I'm like, how is that possible? And then when he took us through the class, it was just a very simple, I don't even remember. It wasn't like, oh, the moves were so interesting or the sequence was so cool. It was just a really simple hatha yoga kind of class. And I felt instantly like, oh my gosh, this is a remembering. This is all those glimpses that I had as a kid, but there's this practice to it. Why didn't anybody tell me before? There's this practice to all of these things that I had questions about. So I thought, okay, I definitely want this for my life. I'm going to ask him more. I'm going to find out more. And I think probably like so many people who become yoga teachers, my next thought was, well, why don't my friends do this? Why doesn't my family do this? Why isn't this everywhere? So that was that first kind of whack on the back of the head feeling that really led me to wanting to learn more about it and share it really with everybody. And at the same time, I was doing the modeling and TV commercials and dancing. So I was having this really cool experiences being around lots of different people all the time on sets and films and, hair and makeup people and catering people and people just, on a photo shoot, people start talking about all their problems. And I said, well, I'm learning about yoga and yoga takes care of all your problems. And they would say, well, my head hurts, my back hurts, my boyfriend broke up with me. I'm cranky. So I would show them little simple things that I was learning, like whether it was alternate nostril breathing or simple, taking things that look like stretches, but more in an intuitive way. And they said, well, okay, it's not just stretching. It's not just strength building. It's not just breathing. It's this whole thing. And I would literally just have these little mini yoga sessions with anyone that I was meeting because I was always talking about it and people are always sharing their problems. So I think it's probably,
so you did that on set? So yeah. So that I can imagine. So you had a break, a lunch break on a commercial shooting set and you went like, let's do an alternate nostril breathing.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't anything formal at all. It wasn't like roll out the yoga mat or whatever. Yeah. And it wasn't anything I planned, but I would talk to the catering person and there's like this young person that's just like me and she's carrying these heavy boxes and, so we'd help her and things like that. And then she would say, oh, my back hurts and I have a headache. And I said, oh, let's try this breathing technique. It might help you feel better. And then I would, and then she would say, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So that's kind of how I just automatically wanted to share it with people in these really any kind of setting. And, one thing started to lead to another. And, eventually I started leading a free class in Central Park, and that more looked like a yoga class, like an hour, bring your yoga mat. We'll do yoga by the tree, and that was cool because that was like a yoga class, but I was definitely up for sharing it, really in all of these other situations too.
Wow. That's so brave. And I think it sounds super organic, that you really brought this, all these tools into this world, which can be, very driven by, competition and, the external things. Was it also for you that you felt like unhealthy, issues around, for example, the competition part? I mean, being a ballet dancer is like what I know about it is brutal. Yeah. Like how disciplined you have to be and how your feet look and all of that. And, so was it also for you, for your own healing part, something that you felt is really doing something good and it's a balance to this external focus?
Yeah, I think I got really lucky with ballet. I had an amazing primary teacher, and he's the one who brought yoga to us. He was with American Ballet Theater in New York. And he always taught us in this, it was very disciplined, but it wasn't abusive. It wasn't rigid. And so everything I learned about dance was I knew my limitations. I knew what I was capable of and wasn't capable of. But I guess I was also being taught not to be cruel to myself and really, and also maybe just not recognize if someone was being cruel to me to kind of take that on. So I think I had a really great experience with dance in that capacity. And, but yeah, I do know that a lot of people feel, whether it's from dance or modeling or life, this kind of pressure that takes you away from being yourself. And I think I just kind of knew enough about myself. I knew what, wherever I was going to go, wherever it was going to take me, I had to be myself in order to make that happen. So I couldn't, let my insecurities take over too much because that would just cloud the me coming out of it. So I always, have the regular human insecurities, but I kind of just had from those good teachers that instinct enough to say, okay, it's really challenging to be in this room and to go and stand in front of that photographer or whatever, but do it in the way where I'm still me and I'm not trying to be like so-and-so or so-and-so, because as soon as you do that, it's over, like you're going to feel worse and it's not going to work anyway. So I think I always had that, that knowledge passed down to me to override that insecurity. But yeah, yoga's definitely helped me with all of the, just the insecurities that come up every single moment in life, for sure.
That is beautiful how you talk about the approach of the ballet you experienced, and that's amazing. And it also, what you just shared, I feel like, I still have some friends from my time in acting and modeling, and there are very few who can do that, staying healthy, like mentally, and I think it says a lot about like, you have a very good self-worth, I guess. Would you say that's something that you just, just have like from maybe your childhood, or something that you just build over time? That what you just shared, that all the external things didn't come so close to you?
Yeah, I think, I don't know, maybe it's also the German background, and then, very almost, maybe it's a cultural thing too. Like, I didn't want to fake something within myself. So if I saw maybe a pressure to be a certain way, or somebody said, oh, you should dress like that, you'll get more parts, I knew that it wasn't true, because if I was trying to look like another girl who was very beautiful and very talented in one thing, but dressed a certain way, if I just wore her costume, I was never going to be her. So I thought, well, how can I dress? How can I present myself in, the world of TV commercials and whatever, to play the part where I can play myself the best right now. So I kind of just always knew that I had to improve and I had to get better at, overriding those insecurities, but also just sticking to that, creating my own character for all of those different things. And then with yoga, you get to just take it off, like you don't have to, like now you can, you get to, like you said before, like you love the color behind you. I love it too. Nobody's telling you have to do it a certain way. And I think my experience with dance and with modeling and things is I got the gigs where I was being myself. And maybe if I was playing by the other rules, I would have gotten different gigs or more gigs or less gigs. I have no idea, but I just got the ones that were appropriate for me. And I think that's where a lot of people get stressed out and even find a lot of success in trying to do it in a formula that doesn't feel authentic to them. And I've just always felt that desire to stay connected to myself intuitively. And I know we all know that when we do that and then we improve the things that we're doing, that's kind of the magic formula. You take you and then you improving, and then that's awesome. Then we're all connected, everybody's individual and also interesting to each other. So I think I've always been just interested in people in that way. That way, like, on a TV commercial set, I never felt competition because we're all there, we're all doing the job, and I could more talk to the camera person or talk to the costume person and ask about their life and what's going on with them. And those things were always more interesting to me. So maybe I'm just, in my own world with that in a certain way.
Yeah, you really sound also like a connector. Like that's a natural thing for you to connect with people and connect with people and bring people together. So you shared a little bit before how your yoga career or as your teaching started in Central Park, and you developed your own style of yoga called Strala-Yoga. So can you share a little bit about that? Like how did that happen, or what was the desire behind creating an own style, or did it just happen, without intention, or what was maybe missing for you in other styles you experienced? Yeah, can you share a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, that was a total accident for sure. And and I was reluctant to it. I mean, I wanted to lead yoga because there were so many styles, and the friends of mine that weren't going to yoga studios weren't going because maybe they would try one style and they would feel intimidated or shy about it or whatever. And then they would try something else, and then something else they didn't connect with. So there was already a lot of, we're doing it this way and we're doing it this way and we're doing it this way. So I wanted to come in and say, well, you can just, move how it feels right for you and listen to yourself and all of these things. And people started coming, and the feedback right away from my friends that had never done yoga before, and also my yoga teacher friends, were all the same. Like, this is so different. What is this called? And I'm like, it's just yoga. It's maybe different than Jivamukti and Shivananda and Ashtanga and all of that, but we don't need to call it another thing, there's enough things, guys. But they just kept saying, it's so different. It's so different. What's it called? And at that point, we started a small studio, and you have to have a name for your studio. So we came up with the name Strala. And people just started saying, oh, this is the Strala style of yoga. And I'm like, no. It's just yoga. We're just, doing it in a way where it's more intuitive. It's connected, all of these things. And, it really took me many years to just give in to people, because I saw my yoga teacher friends would come and they would do various trainings and still not feel like themselves. And they would say, well, I can apply all of these things that you're doing. And then I go back and more people feel good about themselves in my classes. And then more people come, people aren't getting injured as much. All of these good things were happening. So that's when I started thinking, okay, it's not a teacher training thing I want to do yet, because that's another whole, shebang. But maybe I can start giving workshops for yoga teachers that want to, help more people feel included in their classes. And I was teaching all of these things like moving from your center and letting your breath and body be connected. And these things I was learning, not just from yoga, but Tai Chi and Shiatsu, but also just things that seem like common sense, like not pushing somebody forcefully into a position. And unfortunately, at that time, a lot of us learned in yoga trainings that, it's not good unless you go all the way. So a lot of people were just, good yoga teachers, nice people were just, forcing people in yoga poses, and then people wouldn't want to come back. So those kinds of workshops had a lot of excitement around it, and people would go back and have more success in their classes and more people would feel good. So, eventually I just kind of gave in and we started teaching longer trainings and 200-hour trainings, and people started coming from all over the world and saying they really love this, and they go back and they have success and people want to come to their classes and enjoy yoga. So then I'm thinking, okay, let's just go for it. So we finally, it took about 10 years to fully give in and say, if we're going to do this, it needs to be something that's actually helpful for people and not just another system of movement, for sure.
Mm-hmm. How would you describe Strala-Yoga, like for someone who has no idea what it feels like, looks like?
Sure. People often say a class feels like them. It's yoga, but it feels like it's your idea in a way. So the movements that we do are, all the same things. No one's going to push you into a pose. No one's going to, yell at you and those things that hopefully don't happen anywhere at all again, ever. I think we're kind of past that now in, the history of Western yoga, but it's very much your breath and body are connected. Your breath is moving you. So the class is focused on what happens from the very first moment to the very end, more than exactly what happens in one particular position at a time. So softness is a big element, breath, body connection, moving from center, using what you need, resting what you don't. These sort of universal principles of moving well, of using your energy in a nice way.
Yeah, it sounds very inviting. What would you say is like the, your main goal in teaching what you teach? How would you like people to feel, or what is your most important message, would you say?
Yeah, I love what you just said. How do I want people to feel? I love this. What I love about the practice the most is it invites you to notice how you feel, just to notice. And often I think, especially with kind of modern yoga, like feeling good is now kind of normal, which I think is just awesome. We're past that, like you should feel bad in yoga. And now it's like you should feel good. And I'm really interested in, well, what do you actually feel? Like maybe it's not bad and maybe it's not good, but what's going on with you? What do you notice? What are you aware of? And I think these are really important questions, not just mental questions, but to connect your mind and body and your whole self together. So my goal with leading and sharing is always to help people notice what's going on with them. And as soon as you notice, you know what to do about it. You start being kinder to yourself and how you move. You get more ideas about life changes and things like that. I don't need to tell you, what to do and who to marry and who to break up with and all of those things. All of those things start to happen when you notice how you feel more. So I think that's my main excitement about the practice.
Yeah, beautiful. You founded Strala-Yoga with your husband. And maybe you can share a bit more about your experience, your journey of, you said it was totally by accident somehow, and you started off with a small studio and then came the style and the trainings. And, I also work partially with my partners together. So I also know, that's a special relationship you add on to the romantic relationship. So, can you share a little about your journey of, becoming an entrepreneur, by accident somehow?
Yeah.
And, and how was it for the relationship running a business together?
Yeah. So I feel really lucky because I think similar to you, we do this with so much of our time that if my partner did something else, I would just never see him and it wouldn't work at all. But we met at a yoga retreat. It was Dharma Mitra and Krishna Das. It was like an Easter weekend. And I kind of went as a little bit of a joke. I didn't really know what was going on. I was, my 20s still. My friends were a lot older and very serious about yoga. And I said, okay, let's go check it out. Let's see what's going on. And he was there. And I got this feeling instantly like this guy looks, and this sounds a little bit strange, but like he doesn't fit in this crowd because all the guys that came to yoga, at least back then, were like, they were strange. Like in normal life, they'd be the ones sticking. They were like tie-dyed clothes, checked out of their life, or like gay, like all my yoga friends are gay guys. Obviously, I'm not going to marry a gay guy unless, tax purposes, immigrant, something like that, like not a legitimate relationship. So he looked like he wasn't checked out of his life, but he was still there. And I'm like, why are you here? Like, you don't look like you have a severe issue with your life right now. And of course, everybody's got their issues and things like that. But I kind of stayed away from him because I had this feeling like I knew I was going to marry him, but I also wasn't done like dating and having fun and just being, in my 20s in New York. So I put him off for a while because as soon as we came together and had our first date, it was kind of over. Like that was it. I was done. I had to call everybody else and say, sorry, lose my phone number, please. It was a sad time for me. Yeah, but then, okay, so sorry, like with all the yoga stuff. So yeah, so I was doing my yoga things and he was always coming to yoga, and he grew up doing Tai Chi and, and martial arts and things like that. So he physically and mentally was just totally in it. But he did all of these other things with his work. And I'm like, why are you doing all this work stuff? And then you have this other life that you love. And he's like, well, that's really cute. You do all your yoga things, like your YouTube and your private clients. And I'm like, no, like this is going to be like what I do. Like, I didn't know it was going to be Strala in a studio. I thought I would take like our background in common together and have it be more like I would write books and maybe work in a magazine and, just, be an ambassador for yoga in some kind of way. I thought it would be more like my single person doing something in the world, like that. And he didn't kind of see my vision, like where I was going with it. And then after a while, when we started the small studio, it was in his apartment, by the way, because he had like a small apartment, but a little bit bigger living room than I did. I'm like, by the way, I'm going to use your apartment now for a yoga studio. But he loved it because all these people came over and he just started going to his job less and less and hanging around me more and more. And I'm thinking, okay, if you're not going to go to work anymore, like let's do this together. And it really, I think it helped him a lot, sort of solidify his interest in life with what he was doing with his time. So, he has this whole background in Tai Chi that he kind of just buried under the rug and never even talked about. And he has this whole background in, mind body medicine. That's like what he studied in school, but then he just kind of put it away. And I'm like, you are all of these things. Why don't you just, like tell people about it and at least admit it to yourself and start sharing it, just with the groups that are coming to classes. So yeah, slowly but surely we just started doing more and more together.
And you still do it until now, right? That's how it sounds.
Yeah, now it's great. I mean, he's very good at answering emails and being organized and things like that. So he does that. And he also teaches Tai Chi. And I do the things that I'm good at. So it's sort of like we just figure out what we can do. We figure out what we can't do and have other people help us with that. So yeah, it's nice. And we have a really great lifestyle as well. So we can have time with Daisy. We decided not to, a lot of our friends in New York, like have not necessarily yoga businesses, but wellness businesses. And they, took other directions where they raise funding and they get all these people. And I resisted that because I knew if I wanted to have a family, I wanted to be there and not be in an office all the time. So we have a nice balanced, at least for what we want to do, a nice life for ourselves too.
Sounds beautiful. Your mom also, and also many moms listening to this podcast, yogini moms. And I think what is always very interesting is how was your adaptation process from, being used to your practice, like having 2 hours for yourself in the morning to like, waking up at 6 a.m. or something and you have to play or, you have to care for your child. So how was that, that transition for you, like from that before being a mom to being a mom?
Yeah, it was definitely hard. And I think it wasn't so much for me, like missing that time. I mean, we used to go to the studio, have a yoga class, go out to brunch with whoever wanted to go out to brunch, like come home, watch a movie, go back to the studio, go out for dinner, living the life. And when you have a little one, it's just not that anymore. And I think at least my experience was not missing that life, but trying to find almost myself again in the new life. And I was very, I didn't actually realize this until recently, talking with a friend of mine who's been through a lot of trauma, but I was very hypervigilant about her and about just her safety and, where she was and where I was and like how I would do everything with her. And I think I'm just coming out of that now. So just kind of understanding, my own journey to coming back to some sense of normalcy. And I think it's taken me like 6 years to kind of figure that out and just realize that even when I thought, oh yeah, I'm still balancing everything. And when she was a baby, we still, everything was fine on the outside. We took her around to everywhere. We were still doing all the trainings and, same life as before, just without all the downtime. But I do think that I was in this sort of hyper vigilant, almost like rigidity kind of found me somehow. I somehow escaped it with all the yoga. And then I found it when I was, a new mom for sure. And I'm kind of more aware of it now that I can breathe a little bit and she's going to be okay. I'm still doing everything that I can do to keep her safe, but I can, relax my own self a little bit more too.
Mm-hmm. So how did your practice change? Like when you remember yourself before being a mom and then, after, like how would you say, like, feels your practice now? How did it change? Like, also, how can I imagine it? Like, how much time do you have? I mean, now she goes to school, but like, how much time did you still take for yourself, for your own practice?
Yeah, I think because of our schedule, we have, yoga's built into that. I don't have like a lifestyle where I have to like go to work and then come home and then go to work and come home. So even when she was a baby, she could be laying on the floor and I was still like doing all of the same yoga. Of course, it felt completely different and my body was completely different, especially in the beginning stages. But I think now it's changed in the way, and I don't know if this is only because of becoming a mom, but also just getting better at my practice and learning more about breath body connection, but I've slowed down quite a bit. And I think that's, we all hope to improve our teaching over time, but I don't know about you, but I'll look at like a video I did 10 years ago and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm just like a little bit like I'm talking so fast. I'm rushing through everything. And now I'm doing better, but I'm sure in 10 years from now, I'll do better too. So I think, that probably is physically and emotionally, partially because of having her, but also just improving in my practice as well.
How do you manage your energy, Tara? You also do many things. You're an entrepreneur, you give trainings, you write books, you have a family, so your own practice, like how do you manage? Like, do you have some like practices, inbuilt rituals that, are sacred for you in your daily life, or what are like maybe tips you have in balancing it all?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think the biggest tip for people, and definitely the biggest thing that's helped me, is sort of this all the time, use the energy that you need and drop everything else that you don't need. And that sort of applied whenever I hear my friends or anybody in a podcast talking about like boundaries and figuring this out. I'm like, oh yeah, that's using what you need, resting what you don't. So, like I was really excited to talk with you on this. So like, this is like the big thing of my day, like I have a few other things, but like, this is the one thing, that I was excited for. And I'm helping my mom out with some things. And with her, sometimes she's like, okay, here's like all these things that I need you to do. And I'm thinking, I'm going to do one thing for you every day. Tomorrow I'll do the next thing the next day. So just, spacing myself out with these tasks that I need to do. And then also just thankfully we have our practice. So I use my practice not just to, keep up my body and strength and all of that, but to notice how I feel and what's going on with me. So I can pretty quickly figure out like, oh, today I need a little bit more gentle practice. And actually tomorrow, maybe it's nice just to get outside and go for a big walk and feel that energy. And the next day, maybe I need something more energetic. So I think that's become a skill that I've figured out, not just to get on my mat and set the timer and do yoga to, exercise, but to notice really how I feel. And then as best as I can, judge what can I do about it to actually take care of myself. So I don't waste time. And I feel like wasting time is wasting energy. And it's kind of like the same thing in that way. So if I can figure out what I need and just do that, then I'm not worried about, or spending extra energy on all of the things that aren't necessary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you said a beautiful thing, that sometimes your practice is not on the mat. This podcast, as you might know, is called Yoga Beyond the Asana. So how does yoga look in our everyday life, and how can, we adapt also the practices of mindfulness, into our daily lives? Like you just said, going for a walk, or I don't know, shaking things off, so, what are some practices you do, like, next to, being on the mat, that maybe people also listening can integrate into their lives?
Yeah, I think it's everything, really. I mean, it sounds so cheesy, but making everything a yoga practice to me is so fun, especially if you really treat it as the physical and the mental is together. Like even opening your car door can be like, well, am I just opening it and like getting to the grocery store? Or can I take a breath and like open the door? And then, then I'm walking around and I'm seeing more people in the parking lot. I'm more available to smile. I don't have to force myself to make a good connection with somebody. I'm more connected with myself. So I try whenever I remember to make every moment a yoga moment. And, that ends up being things for me. I love cooking. So, now that the weather's cold, I love taking time to go to the grocery store and just putting down, that extra project that I really want to mentally do, but it's maybe not time to do yet. And I'll just say, I'm going to go to the grocery store, get all these fresh veggies, come home, make a big soup. The house will smell amazing. And then I'll feel better and I'll feel nourished and ready to do more things. And also having Daisy, there's tons of opportunities to be present with her. And I don't want to, just lose myself in my phone, which I could easily do. Oh, I'm going to answer these emails, or I'm going to check social media, all these things. And I can do that anytime. It's always going to be there. So when she's home from school, she loves to do art and I love to do art. So it's an easy situation. We've made this art room and just like draw and paint and make crafts and things like that. And, it's not always easy. It's easier to just grab the phone or to kind of mentally check out. But I know if I put myself in that situation, I'm going to have a nice moment for myself and for her as well. So it's sort of just building that awareness that resist the kind of easy out and do the thing that is going to make you feel better kind of overall.
Thank you. I would like to stay for a bit longer on the energy management topic. You also said before how important it is to really prioritize and, for example, just do one big task a day. And I think that's such an important message, because I feel sometimes we receive the pressure or the message from the media, especially as women. We have to do it all. We are kind of super women, we can rock it all. We can be super sexy, cooking meals, being a mom, rocking a business, and doing it all at the same time, So I feel it's an important message to say, do less, do less, and just maybe, as you said before, okay, today I have a podcast interview and this is what I prepare for, energetically, mentally, and this is my main thing, and everything else is minor important, it's important, but it's not like I have another big thing right after or something like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I understand the urge too, to just, it's especially now. I mean, I think when I started doing all of this, you couldn't fill your plate as easily because there was the internet, but there wasn't this constant, you couldn't really reach out to people online and connect as easy as you can now. You could send an email and then just wait, but it wasn't social media where you could just sit and look at something all day and get ideas and all of that. So I think I have the benefit of learning there what it takes to make real connections and to kind of figure out what I was appropriate for and where I could be put to good use and how people could receive me in certain ways. And then I kind of figured out my little categories that I can fit into. So now I think it is harder for people at all stages. I mean, even I see myself being like, oh, maybe I should be doing more on social media. And then thankfully I have Mike and he's like, Tara, do you listen to yourself? Like, you're fine. Everything's fine. Don't worry about it. If you feel really inspired, that's something else. So I think it's important to notice at least how you feel. Again, just coming back to what's going on with you. How do you feel? What are you excited to do? And what are you doing because you feel like you should be doing? And, maybe some of those things, I mean, I kind of like doing all the things that maybe other people don't like. Like I like responding to emails. I like responding to comments. I like all of those things. So I don't have boring things that I need to do so much. Maybe I've just changed my mindset about it. And even like helping out my mom, it's like, well, I don't like doing these little tasks to help her out, but I know she's going to feel so much better when it's done. And that's going to be great. So I think just focusing on, well, what am I doing and why am I doing it? How am I going to feel when it's done? Because if I would, for myself, look at my friend who's doing this cool thing on social media and say, well, I'm going to do that same thing. And if I do it and then I post it, I'm not going to feel good about it at all. So it doesn't matter. And it's probably not even going to get good response because I've just done this thing that I think I should be doing. And I think, we can all relate to that on some level because that's the pressure. We feel like, oh my gosh, like everybody's just doing so many cool things. And like, I'm just sitting at home, but everybody's just sitting at home, or sitting in an office or sitting somewhere and somebody's the originator of the cool thing. So why can't it be each of us? And we can all originate in our own ideas. And I think that's the interesting thing about, sharing things in general is when we're ourselves, people like that. And you can share the thing that you're doing and you'll find the people that are interested in it. But the main thing really is to make sure you're doing it because it excites you and it's fun for you and it feels like you, because that's just, it's no fun the other way.
Thank you so much. As a mom, what are some of the most important learnings you received over the last years?
Oh my gosh, so many. I mean, I had a totally different idea about how this experience would be than it was. And a lot of it is similar, but so much of it is different. Like I thought, first of all, okay, your kids are just like carbon copies of you. Not true at all. Like she's totally different, likes her own things. And that's fine. She does have a lot of interests that I think are really cool and fun to do. So I'm happy about some of that, but really listening is a big deal. And I know like parenting, you need to keep them safe and you're supposed to guide them and like feed them good foods and all of those kinds of things. But really listening has been a huge lesson. Listening, not just to what she says, but how she's responding, what's happening, sort of that relationship in a way. I'm not like somebody, I'm not like a mom that thinks, oh, we're going to be like BFFs. I think I said that to her once. I'm like, oh, I'm your best friend. And she's like, you're not my friend. You're my mom. Like, you're right. I need my own friend. She's like, get your own friends. So, listening, I think is really, been a huge one. Listening to her needs, how she feels, and, what's appropriate to do about it, really also. Because it's not always like just give them everything they want, but, we're all kind of just figuring it out as we go along. But listening has been a huge lesson for me. I thought I wouldn't need to do that so much.
It's beautiful. we also talked about before this, yang focus, demanding world we are in. And you speak a lot in your teachings about this softness approach and ease. And can you speak a little bit about how that, came into your focus, that's something, the ease, you even have t-shirts, with that word on, obviously it's very important for you. Can you speak about this importance for yourself and your teachings about softness, about ease?
Yeah, well, I think it came for me from seeing rigidity in the yoga world, but also just in the human world. We go to rigidity when we feel threatened, or when we feel afraid. We're like, oh, we tense up and everything becomes rigid. So I kind of saw rigidity as the enemy, number one, with yoga. And I was like, okay, if we can find a way not to be rigid when we practice yoga, maybe it'll work better, So I was just kind of trying to figure that out for so long. And then I started figuring out, okay, ease makes a lot of sense. Move with ease. I'm, not just telling people how to move, but taking people step by step through a practice where they end up feeling like there's nothing they're fighting in a way. They're getting to know themselves and also trusting that you can progress when you are doing something that's nourishing for yourself. And I think that's the hardest thing for so many people. And I remember years ago in Berlin, this is why I love Germans. There was this German woman and she's like, okay, I understand, what you're talking about. We're in the warrior too. And you're saying to be in the position, but then you're saying to relax and be at ease. But then what do I do with my extra energy? Do I put it back in? I'm thinking this is such an interesting conversation, because as soon as we're already doing the thing, we're doing the work. And then as soon as we notice that it's not destroying us, it could be challenging, but we're not punishing ourselves. It's so easy to think, oh, I need to punish myself now. How am I going to make this a punishment? And so that was so much of the human experience, not just the yoga experience. So I started learning at the same time, just by accident, with Mike being his Tai Chi background. And there was a Shiatsu teacher that started getting interested in what I was doing and was like, oh, it's, what you're doing with connection with people is very similar to Shiatsu. You need to be relaxed in yourself while you're connecting with their meridian. Otherwise it doesn't work. And I'm like, okay, that explains everything that's been in my brain that I've been just having conversations about with people. So the physicality of rigidity prevents basically anything from working. And I'm like, this makes so much sense, because you can go to a wonderful yoga class, but if you're tense and if you're kind of beating yourself up inside, you're not going to get that many benefits, and you're going to feel stressed afterwards, and you're going to keep doing all the stressful things. But if you go to that same yoga class and you allow yourself to feel at ease, you're going to get so many more benefits and have the ripple effect of that. So that's, the reason I'm so excited about softness and ease is it's really trying to, combat public enemy number one, which is rigidity, which, we all have this toughness and I'm here and you're there and I think these things and you think those things. And it's sort of maybe we don't need so much of that. Maybe we can, we can still be strong while we're not, being, everything that's rigid eventually breaks. You break yourself or you break somebody else. But if you're soft, you're not vulnerable, you're not melting in this way. You're being ready, you're movable, you can do things, you're more in control of yourself, and you're more able to progress and all of these things that we all want. So I just started getting really interested in what softness actually is. And I just found out that it's the secret to being strong and the secret to being healthy and nourishing yourself and to making good connections. Okay, let's double down on softness. That's the thing.
That's so beautiful. You're also coming to Germany. Speaking of the German woman who has a lot of energy. You offer some training, some teacher training, some workshops. So can you share a little bit about? What can people expect? Where can we meet you?
Yeah. Oh, I love
give you a hug in person.
Yes, please. Yeah, I love coming everywhere for sure, but Berlin has become like another home for us. And we go to Berlin a couple of times a year usually. And the next time is November 2024. We're doing a 2-week, 200-hour training. And we try to be flexible with people. Sometimes folks just want to come for the first weekend and kind of treat it as an intensive, or do a week of it now and a week of it online or later, or stay for the whole 2 weeks. So yeah, if you're interested in visiting Berlin, or if you're already there, that's easy, but come. And we've got a wonderful group of people there that join, and it's a nice community for sure.
Yeah, it sounds really beautiful, and your approach. So we share all the information in the show notes for everyone who's interested, and can get more information about what's coming. So we moving towards the end of the podcast, but also towards the end of this year, 2023. How has it been for you? And can you share maybe 1 to 3 of your biggest learnings? Maybe something you let go of this year, something you feel like you mastered, something you better understood.
Wow. Yeah, it's been a big year for me, for sure. We were in Illinois the last couple of years with my family. My dad was sick with Parkinson's, and thankfully, when we first found out he was sick, we convinced him and my mom to travel with us and to hang out and come to Germany a lot and all these things. So they had a lot of fun. But he was sick and not doing so well. So we decided to go out there just to live and enjoy. And it was the pandemic anyway, so why not? And I got to spend a lot of time with him. At first, I tried to like fix him, like, oh, you could do yoga, and there's like this boxing thing for Parkinson's and shiatsu, and here's all these functional medicine doctors I know, and we're gonna fix your body. It's gonna be fine. And then I realized, that's not possible. So, what I really learned through that experience, he passed away in the beginning of this year, was that connection is so massive, and just feeling that connection with him. And then, just sitting there with him, doing a little bit of leaning or shiatsu or breathing, or just being with him and just listening to him and giving him my attention. And, what I try to do when I lead yoga, and seeing it actually work, and hearing him give me feedback like, wow, you're really here with me right now. You're not distracted. You're paying attention, or you notice what's going on in the room, or, just having somebody who's, my dad give me that feedback is just completely invaluable. And then also seeing how, this practice brought all of that, positivity to that horrible time, and helped me make a better connection with him, and help my mom, and just be the person that could be a responsible adult and be in charge and do all these things. And like we talked about earlier, using the energy that I need and resting the energy that I don't need, especially during a time where you're kind of firing on all cylinders, and it's really easy to get overwhelmed and stressed out. And I just really learned that, oh my gosh, I really want to keep improving on connection and softness and listening to others, because I've seen so many benefits from that, for sure. So I think that was my main huge learning from this year. And also just being open to change. I've always thought, oh, I'm so open to change. I travel, I do all these things, but coming back to the East Coast and being in school, having Daisy being in school, and, it's not like we're starting over again, but there's a new place and a new school and new moms and all these things, and just being open to change and being open to new relationships and new friendships, and all of that has been really nice. And also a challenge, because I'm used to all my old friends that I still get to see, but there's always going to be change, and that's something to go with too.
Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah. Is there anything else to the end of this podcast you would like to share, or you would like people to know, or?
Sure. Yeah. I think just something that's really helped me is this daily practice of connecting with yourself. And I think it can be really simple. It can be on your yoga mat, or it can be really any time of day, but just letting yourself find a comfortable position, whether you're sitting or standing, soften your body and your mind a little bit. And all of a sudden your breath starts to become a little bit more big naturally anyway. You don't have to try to breathe more big or full. And then to simply notice how you feel. I don't even remember when I started doing that, but there was a point when I wasn't, a point where I am, and I've seen a dramatic change in my life, both in how I feel and also in the things externally that are working better in my life without the force, without the trying so hard. So I think there's some real magic in that little process for sure.
Thank you so much. It was very, very valuable, what you had to share, I think. I hope everyone feels inspired and, from this podcast. I really hope, you have some outcomes for people listening. Thank you so much for taking the time today, Tara, to have this conversation, to come to this podcast. It was really a big pleasure to meet you. And it's so funny. I told you before, we started this podcast, that 8 years ago, I was reading your books, and now we sit here together. So it's, and I was just, I was in the beginning of my teaching. So that's really beautiful how things come together and connect. Yeah. The big topic, I think, of this podcast, connection. Yeah. Thank you so much, Tara.
Yeah. I'm so glad to meet you, and thanks for bringing me on your awesome podcast, and hopefully we get to hug in Portugal or somewhere around the world soon.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone listening to this podcast. This podcast is absolutely free. It's ad free. If you liked this conversation, please share it with your friends who you feel maybe like to benefit from this podcast, or share it on social media, whatever you feel like. And if you like to rate this podcast, I'm also very grateful for your positive feedback. Yeah. Thank you so much for listening, and we hear us next week. Thank you so much.